Sue does have some plans for, if he wants to go, if he wants to stay with you, that's fine, so, whatever you would like to do. But, we were, we've been talking about universal laws the last couple of weeks, so I'm gonna kind of continue on that. And just as a reminder, universal laws are in action no matter what. You don't have to call them in or whatever, it's just like gravity. And the thing is, Jesus said, I've come not to destroy the law, but to fulfill the law. So what he did was show us how to use the law for our benefit, to live abundantly. So he basically said, whatever I can do, you can do also, but we have to follow the ways that he taught us. And he taught us how we can work with the universal laws to live that life of abundance and of love and peace. So I want to read this little thing in the, I'm going to talk about two books today, The Law of Spirits, and also read something from Celebrate Yourself. But The Laws of Spirit was written by Dan Millman, and it's fiction, so it tells a story, but the concepts in it are very good. So I like it when he talks about the Law of Spirits. This little writing in the beginning, it says, there is a mystery that many call God, manifesting as universal love, a set of laws, and a great process. This process works through each and all of us, and that process is perfect. As we discover this fundamental truth in the journey of our lives, we find that wherever we step, the path appears beneath our feet. And that's the whole thing, is to realize that, this universe functions by a set of laws. And just as the law of gravity, it's important to know that, so I don't jump out of a 10-story window. But it's also important that when we know the laws, it's more than just knowing them, but then living by them or living according to those laws to make our life more abundant and more fulfilled. So I'll start with that saying, first of all, is the law of choice and the law of action. We all have choices, so let's put it that way. We talk about the laws, but we have a choice whether we want to live by them or not, just like man-made laws. So we have a choice if we want to drive the speed limit or if we don't want to drive the speed limit. We have a choice of whatever we do. And the law of action says we have to move forward. And I forget who it was that said, it starts with the first step. You have to take a step when you begin. You can't just sit and wait for everything to happen. And I think sometimes with people, when they learn
the journey of 1,000 miles
is one step, yeah. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. And it's a matter of sometimes when people learn about the law of attraction, get all excited, and the law of attraction works. But it's a matter of you can't just sit there and wait till something drops in your lap. You still have to move forward and kind of do your part of what needs to be done. And sometimes there's balance there too, which we're going to talk about that. And I thought this story is a story about a guy that meets a sage, and the sage does teaching of the universal laws with him. So like I say, it's a fictional story, but it has a lot of great concepts. So one of the things is the sage has lived life after life after life after life, and she remembers all the lives that she's lived. And she said she lived all these lives to do a lot of learning, and so that she could teach other people. And when she talked about the law of action, she said, I remember, she said, one time I was a young woman and I was all into knowledge. And I read books and I knew all this stuff, and I was really quite proud of myself for all this knowledge that I had. So she said I was going to go across the sea and do some visitation and share my knowledge with people. So I hired this boat to take me across. And she said, I was impressing this man with all my knowledge, and I was speaking all the time of all my knowledge. And when we were in the middle of the sea, he stopped and he said, with all that knowledge that you had, have you ever learned to swim? And she said, she giggled, and she said, well, no, I actually haven't. And he said, well, that's too bad, because the boat is sinking. And the man said to her, well, what happened? She said, well, I drowned, of course. But her point was, she had all this knowledge, but never took time to put it into place. She said she knew how to swim, she had the knowledge of what to do, but she never put it into practice and never learned how to swim. And it was kind of like a funny thing. She said, yes, I learned a lot in that lifetime. But the thing is, having the knowledge is not enough. We need to put it into practice, and that's what it really works for us. So I want to talk about, first of all the laws kind of come together, like we talked about the law of vibration, the law of attraction, cause and effect. they all kind of are similar and come together and overlap each other. So first I want to talk about, say something about the law of relativity and the law of polarity. So what's the law of polarity? There's opposites to everything, right? Everything has its opposites. And we think about everything having its opposite. So we think about, let's take hot and cold. We have hot on this side and cold on this side. And then it's somewhere in the middle. So it's interesting, have you had a roommate or a spouse or something that doesn't agree on what's comfortable? Somebody's always putting up the thermostat or down the thermostat part. So when we talk about that polarity, we bring in relativity, because really what's hot and cold is relative considering somebody's opinion, right? I might be hot at 80 degrees, somebody might only be hot at 90 degrees. So, you know, it's really relative. And to realize that, to realize the law of relativity is when you get into the point to say everything just is. And everything else upon that is our judgment about it. And it's interesting because when we think about polarity, we know, you know, we have to experience the opposite to really appreciate what we want. Have you ever had a sore throat and it really bothered you? And, you know, you focused on that sore throat all the time. But when you didn't have a sore throat, you really could appreciate feeling good. And sometimes, until we experience the opposite, we don't appreciate what we have, and we don't really appreciate things that we normally have. Basically, we normally have until we lose them. So the law of relativity is, of course, is not non-judgment. It's non-judgment. It's to say everything just is, and whatever judgment I put on it is good or bad. So it says the law of relativity says that everything in life is neutral. And think about that. Everything in life is neutral. It is you who attach meanings and emotion to your own experiences. To another person, your challenges may seem whimsical, and someone else may not appreciate what they have and you want. This is because everything is neutral. Everything is relative. Keep this in mind if you ever feel like you have it worse than someone else. If you stay grateful and attach more positive meaning to events, life answers accordingly. And it's almost like, I love the story about the two twins. One was a severe pessimist, one was a optimist, and the parents took him to the psychiatrist and said, you know, what am I going to do with these kids? He said, well, let's do a little experiment here. So he had this room of brand new toys, and you know, he took the pessimist into the room of brand new toys to kind of turn him around to be an optimist. And, you know, he started crying. He said, I don't want to play with these. I'm afraid I'm going to break them. You know, I don't want to make them dirty and all this and that. And he said, boy, you know, this guy really is a pessimist. So he took the optimist, and he had a room full of, I'll say it nicely, I guess, horse dung. And the kid went into the room, and he joyfully started playing and singing and throwing it all around. He was all happy. And the psychiatrist said, what are you doing? He said, I know with all this crap, there's a pony in here someplace. So the thing is, when we talk about polarity, is to realize that even in the room of tongue, there's a pony in there someplace, because it had to come from someplace. So I like what it says here about the law of polarity. Everything in life has its opposites. There is a day and there's a night. There's a hot and a cold. There's a white and a black. Everything, therefore, has a silver lining. That bad breakup you had taught you something that will positively change your life. If you got fired, it opened up the door for a new opportunity. This is true for every event in life. On some occasions, it may not be you who will experience the positive side effect of a negatively perceived event, because we are all connected. As the law of divine oneness reminds you, everything comes back full circle to help you in the end. I like that. Everything comes back full circle to help us in the end. So what do we learn from talking about relativity and polarity? What do we learn?
I think with regard to the relativity issue, you mentioned perception, and that goes back to what do you want to focus in on?
Yeah, everything is perception. Basically, everything is perception in life, and whatever we judge it to be, that's what it becomes for us. There could be something happening, just like, the two guys that lost a job, one, has himself going to the bridge and, oh my God, I'll lose everything. This is really bad. I'll never get another job at my age and yada, yada. The second guy says, wow, what an opportunity. Now I can do what I want. I can start my own business. And they both experienced the same thing. But to one, the incident or the situation was horrendous, and to the other was quite an opportunity. So when we come to the law of choice, is we have the choice to always remember that no matter what happens, is we have the choice, are we going to focus on the negativity? What we focus on, like you said, Dennis, are we going to focus on the negativity? Are we going to focus on the bad? Or are we going to look for the silver lining, knowing that everything has a silver lining? Everything is, and again, when we talk about God, everything is in the whole. Everything is a whole. So there's nothing that is not there already. The answer is there already. The opportunity is there already. It's a matter of what we focus on. And what we focus on, we see more of, and we experience it. So it's our choice, and we have to take action then towards that step. So, okay, I want to get into also is the law of balance. Has anybody ever thought about the law of balance? However, the law of balance is the whole universe basically is in balance, and everything is run by balance. Think about your human body. When you get overexerted, what happens? Your body tells you breathe heavier and take in more oxygen to balance that. If you eat a lot of sweets or whatever, your body puts out more insulin and balances your blood sugar. So everything is in balance. What happens when we get out of balance?
Fall
Huh?
over. We fall over.
We fall over, exactly. If we're out of balance, we fall over. And that's the whole thing. In every phase of our life, if we're out of balance, we fall over. So think about areas in life. I talked a little bit about our body. Think about areas in life where we get out of balance. What areas in life might we get out of balance?
Relationships.
Relationships, exactly. Relationships, work and relationship too, right? People that work too much, don't take quiet time. People that work too much and don't pay attention to relationships. How else?
Your health?
Health, right. The thing is, we can overdo and underdo anything. And it's a matter of keeping a balance. So what do nutritionists always say? A balanced diet. Nothing of any one thing is too good for us. And we know that in that respect, but a lot of times we forget about it in life. So think about the balance of giving and receiving. What would happen if we would continually inhale? Can we even continually inhale and never exhale? Can't do it. You can't do it. We can't continually eat and not have elimination. You can't do it and stay healthy. So why do people think that it's okay, or that they'll get abundance or whatever, to continually receive and never give? It's a balance, right? Giving and receiving is a balance. So, it's part of the balance. I want to read out of here what it says about balance. And she reminds us here, I like this little thing. It says, if gravity is the glue that holds the universe together, balance is the key to unlock its secrets. Balance applies to our body, mind, emotions, and all levels of our being. It reminds us that anything we do, we can overdo or underdo, and that if the pendulum of our life or habits swing too far to one side, it will inevitably swing to the other. So, we create a balance. If we consciously create a balance in our life, things will go a lot better. If we don't, usually the universe takes care of that. Our bodies take care of that and tells us. What happens when we overwork a lot of times? We end up depleted, sick. So our body's telling us, you overdid it, and you need to come back to a balance. And then we're forced to take a rest, basically. And unfortunately, like giving and receiving, if we give, Without being able to receive, we become depleted. If we receive, we become overstuffed, basically, and will yield the results of the universe also. So I wanted to say, it says, and this sage had taken this man along, so it says, as we proceed along the path around the pond, the sage spoke about another aspect of this law. Balance begins with the breath. She said, taking in and letting go are the primal rhythms of life. Breathing in, you find inspiration. Breathing out, you find release. Inspiring and expiring, birth and death are all every breath. Feel your breath right now. And I invite you to feel your breath right now. Notice how, when the rhythm of your breathing are out of balance, your emotions are too. So when you feel anger, accept it fully and bring the breath to balance. When you feel sorrow, embrace it tenderly and bring the breath to balance. When you feel fear, honor it and breathe deeply to find your balance. As you exhale, you give. As you inhale, you receive. If you receive more than you give, you feel that imbalance as a need to reciprocate and complete the circle relationship. If you give more than you receive, you feel depleted and eventually will have nothing left. And then he said, I've read about saints who give much and receive very little. So it may appear, but such beings experience abundant joy, love, and gratitude, she responded. The law of balance assures us that those who give freely in the spirit of love and generosity receive in abundance. So, it's a matter of how we give also. But I love that little thing on the breath, because I know when people get upset, they say, a lot of times, I want to go out for smoke. I want to go out for smoke to feel a little bit better. And what is it really with the smoking that makes them feel better? And, a lot of times I'll say, well, smoking, nicotine as a stimulant will get you all worked up. However, think about how you breathe when you smoke. If you're ever a smoker, I was, but it's the way you breathe. And I like that little thing about always going back to the breath, because a lot of times that's how we can get back to our balance of emotions, is when you take a deep breath in, let it out. Take it in, let it out. And you can kind of feel your body calm down and balance. And it's true that when we get all emotional and everything, our breath gets out of whack. Think about, you breathe harder, you have shorter breaths, and that's out of balance. So your body's out of balance, your emotions are out of balance. So one thing to do is to breathe, focus on your breathing, get your breathing back in balance. And once your breathing is back in balance, everything else kind of comes in place in balance. So we talk about balance, and along with balance and polarity and ends of the thing and this is the last one I'm going to talk about, is the law of gender. And it's interesting because in the Bible, they talk about male and female, and unfortunately, it has been translated as sexual orientation or human gender. But really, gender really is the masculine and the feminine energy. And just like the Chinese symbol, the yin and the yang, is you need both of them for balance, or both of them for creativity. So when we talk about balance, what happens when somebody is always all in their head and never into intuition, emotion, their heart? What happens? Get out of balance. It's really out of balance, and a lot of times creativity doesn't happen unless you have both male and female energy. This is what Eric Butterworth wrote about gender. He said, in Genesis we read, and God said, let us make man in our image and our likeness. And God created man in his own image, male and female created he them. Thus, man created in the likeness of God must have the essence of mother, father, and male, female in him. Love in man is essentially a female attribute, and wisdom is a masculine attribute. This masculine-feminine makeup is essentially essential to healthy mindedness. When God said it is not good for man that man should be alone, it means that it is not good for wisdom to act alone. We need also the wisdom to believe the heart, and to balance and say, to do everything with love and intuition. It is time to acknowledge that reasoning power alone has never solved human problems. The more we think about a problem, the more complex it becomes, unless the light comes. And the question is rarely asked, where does the light come from? Einstein said all his work was a result of intuition and not of logic and reason. He was aware of the red carnation. H.G. Wells envisioned a time when schools and teachers would no longer be necessary except to show us how to get in touch with the infinite knowledge that dwells within us. I like that idea. This doesn't mean substitution for an anemic concept of faith. Faith should not be rejected. Faith should not be a reject of the intellect. It should build on the stuff of the mind and use it without the limitation of what the philosopher calls priority logic. It is the wisdom to believe in the heart. So when we talk about balance, we want to talk about our logic and our intuition. And again, well, it's great to know this stuff, but we have to take all that wisdom, all that knowledge, and put it into our hearts. And once we bring it into our hearts, then we'll be guided to the action that we need to do. We'll be guided to giving through our love, be guided to balance, be guided through all that. So it's polarities of balance. There's male, female, but the manifestation or the creative energy comes when they both come together. Just like humans, we need the male and the female to be creative. So, we need that male and that female energy as a balance in our life, also to be creative, to come from the heart, not just from the intellect. Comments? Discussion?
What I hear is faith, because you're still acknowledging you have pain or you have sadness or whatever struggle you're having, but you're also telling yourself, or you have that inner strength to say all is well or all will be well. So the little boy that runs in and sees all the manure, he doesn't say there's no manure here. He just has faith that there are good things out there. And I think that's important, that you can acknowledge that you're going through struggles or pain or whatever, but your faith lets you know that all is well.
Exactly. And this too shall pass. Jesus always said, and it came to pass. The Bible says it came to pass. It didn't come to stay. And, which is another law of rhythm. Law of cycles, law of rhythm is, there's the ebb and the flow, the back and the forth, the pendulum swings. So, we can't expect to always be, and that's balance also, is we can't expect to always be up and, that's bipolar. Always be up, because when we're always up, what's going to happen? We're going to crash. We're going to crash down. It's balance, and it is. It's to realize that the pendulum swings, and sometimes we're up, sometimes we're down, but it's a matter of working with that, not fighting against it. And to realize that and acknowledge that and try to bring ourselves back into balance and acceptance. And acceptance of where we are. And I do have here about rhythm. It says, everything has a rhythm. Everything is moving in a cycle. There's a moon cycle, the seasons change, there's a cycle of life and death, and everything else falls into a similar pattern. Just like the moon, you have your own light and shadow cycles. If you are in one shadow, if you are in the shadow one, do not fret, but wait it out. Focus on yourself and wait it out. And when you are in a light cycle, use it to its full potential. Each cycle will start and end many times during your life. And it talks about, when we talk about the law of rhythm and cycles, is, think about nature. Kind of spring flows into summer, and, it doesn't push it, it doesn't fight it. There's just a natural flow of change and rhythm and cycles. And, exactly, we have these down parts. It's a matter of embracing it. She even said, embrace it, and then try to get back into balance without becoming those. I like that statement that you know, my mentor used to say is feel the feelings, but don't become the feelings. Don't become that. You know, you can feel down, you can feel depressed, just don't become depressed. And that's when we focus on those negativity instead of trying to bring back a balance.
I was thinking about the connectedness that we all need with one another, because I'll just say personally, I have some control freak, perfectionistic ways where I feel like I do everything myself to get it done right. But then, and probably from being an only child, but as I've grown, I've realized that there's things that I'm not good at that other people are really good at. And having that balance, it's good to know when you have problems come up to say, this is overwhelming, I don't know if I can do this for myself, and then you start to look around and you think, wait, what am I good at? What do I like to do? And what do I don't like to do? Or what can somebody else do better than me?
Yeah.
And I need these other people. And I realized that through my life, the more I let other people in, the more things flow better because I have that balance, because their natural skill and talent and knowledge complements mine.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to struggle and do everything myself and being overwhelmed and frustrated. It's much more of a balance when you can work with other people.
Yeah.
And I've had to learn that skill. It wasn't something
Yeah.
easy for me. But the more I let people in, the more I relied on others, and vice versa, they relied on me, the better it has come. And the flow is much better.
I like the word that you use, they complement you. And, you know, I say, you know, marrying people and stuff, too many people, they look at somebody to complete them, you know, and they don't realize that they have those two energies inside, and, you know, to realize that you're complete, but somebody else complements you, and together you can do a lot better job than by yourself.
Well,
I
the
like
other
that.
word was diversity.
Mhm.
If you think about it, it would be so boring. It would be so boring if we all looked alike, if we all had the same talents, if we all had the same skill. I mean, wouldn't we all be boring? Like, we would learn nothing from one another.
Yeah,
So the diversity and the connectedness of one another and each other is really what makes the world go round.
and that's so true. And if we would start looking at that as the diversity as a great thing, instead of looking at differences. And I know Amanda Bradley once wrote, peace will come when we start looking at how we're the same instead of how we're different. You know, really love the differences, but, you know, don't judge the differences as bad, you know, and focus on how we're the same. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And there again, it's like everything is neutral. When we say that, everything is neutral. People just are. You know, we say that they're bad, this is bad, that's bad, or whatever. And when you think about different cultures, it's really kind of funny, and it really shows the relativity of it, because some things that are really bad in other cultures, in our country, no problem at all. You know, people would come here and see how we dress or whatever, and it would be like, you know, we'd be a freak show, as opposed to, you know, how some people have to dress in other countries. And it's not good or bad, it's just, that's the way it is. That's the custom. And once we accept that, you know, everything just is, it's neutral. We're the one that puts the judgment on it. That's when we can start accepting people more in diversity, I believe.
You can make comparisons, but not judge.
Right, right. Okay. All righty, then we'll take this into meditation. And, you know, I'll say again is, you know, knowing the laws or